Ah, yes. The lovely scenery of winter with a struggling train going down the tracks. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's snowing and sleeting. It's like a whole wintry mix here. At 5 past the hour, a frigid 29 degrees Fahrenheit here in New York City. Welcome, everyone. It is the morning after a live stream show. How's everyone doing? I hope everyone had a great holiday weekend. Here in the US, it was a 3-day holiday weekend while we all celebrate Martin Luther King. And here, let me switch over to my camera. The sounds of winter. Lovely, lovely goodness. What's up, everyone? It is Tuesday. Hopefully, I think a lot of you are probably starting off your weeks today, whether you're back at work, back to school. I don't know. Some schools may be closed because of the wintry weather mix happening. But like I was saying, it was a holiday weekend here in the States. So many people had a nice 3-day holiday weekend, some of whom probably went away for a bit to enjoy the weekend. Some stayed around and all that. I myself stayed around, hung out, caught up with a friend of mine. This is a good friend of mine that I think this started like a year ago or maybe 2 years now, where we get together and we're big fans of like retro gaming and all that. And we've come to the realization, which I'm sure a lot of you have also in the past, that there are just a bunch of games that we have never played from beginning to end. That's just how it is, right? Especially a lot of those console co-op games, going back to the days of like the Super Nintendo, the Genesis, and onto future generations, the Saturns, the Dreamcast, all that stuff. So we've decided and took it upon ourselves that, look, we're going to try to breeze through as much of these games as we can for the remainder of our lives or our friendship. And we're going to, go game to game and just basically try to beat it. Start it off and then beat it, and see how many we can get throughout the year. So now it's become a tradition. So we went ahead and we started playing. This is our third or fourth attempt at starting Guardian Heroes for the Sega Saturn. Now, the reason why I say this is like our third or fourth attempt is because we've attempted to play this before. Either we got through very little of it because we were distracted or we were interrupted for some reason. Maybe we were too high to play it and we just wanted to play something quick. But we're very hell-bent and serious about playing this game from beginning to end. And we got pretty damn far this time until all of a sudden his system crapped out. And it froze, it hung there as it was trying to load to the next stage. And that's it. That's all she wrote. We tried to reboot it and boot it up again, and it just never happened. Never happened. So that was a bummer. I felt like we were so close to completing that game. And then we just moved on to Dragon's Crown on the PS4. I know it originally came out on the PS3, but we decided to play the PS4 version because he had his PS4 set up in his nice TV. And it's a gorgeous game. I'm a huge fan of Vanillaware. Those guys, they put out a lot of great games. If you haven't checked them out, I highly recommend that you do, because they're very, very good games. And then the next day he texts me. He's like, "Hey, I was able to slightly fix the Saturn." He adjusted the laser setting. on the system. And if you don't know what that means, is that, and this is all techno babble at this point, but there's a screw that increases or decreases the intensity of the laser on every kind of DVD drive. You can access this thing. And so he played around with it and he was able to get it working. But that's a temporary fix, because if you mess with that and the intensity of the laser is higher than it should be, that wears out the laser faster than normal. And we're talking about a system that's like already, 20 years old or what have you. So he also put in an order for a replacement drive, a CD drive. And I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, that was one day of the weekend, and I caught up on some movies and everything. Did that thing, did some work and all. So yeah, so that was the 3-day weekend, and now everyone is back on this very awful looking day. Yeah, it looked better before, but I think now that we have the sleet slowly starting to seep in, you can see it's getting a little bit more wet. But yeah, that is the view right outside, the headquarters here, so to speak. And yeah, that is winter here in New York. But yeah, some things to talk about in this show here. Obviously, normally I would have probably went live on Monday, but given yesterday was a holiday, I decided, you know what, I'm not going to do that. But I do want to talk about the box office weekend, what hit, what missed, where the stats are along all that. There were two major awards that happened over the weekend. One was yesterday, which was the Emmys, which celebrates more about TV. So I want to kind of recap everything that went down there. And then we had the Critics' Choice Awards, which some take seriously, some don't. I'm just kind of middling when it comes to it. But it also kind of, again, part of the award season when it comes to movies, especially, it's important to pay attention to things like that, because it does kind of give us a sense of where people's minds are at when it comes to movies as far as Oscar time comes around. So we already had the Golden Globes, and then now we had the Critics' Choice. So upcoming, we also have SAG has their own awards. The DGA, Directors Guild of America, has their own awards, and of course, Oscar nominations are going to be announced next week. Voting is still currently going on for that. So obviously, I do want to cover the two awards and just kind of recap what went down and all that. Very interesting headlines coming from that, and of course, headlines and the like. But before we go into all of that stuff, let us talk about box office. And I think, I don't know how this is going to go, but box office time. Yeah, well, again, I don't know if this is the right song for it, but let's talk about the box office. All right. So here I am on one of my favorite sites to check out these numbers, and that is thenumbers.com. So the weekend box office was an interesting one because, again, it's a holiday weekend, and that, lends to higher results for certain movies, especially if you're a brand new movie that just came out, right? So this weekend, we saw 2 new releases, actually 4 new releases, if you really think about it. 2 major ones and 2 kind of more like on the indie side of things. One is foreign here. But the main one was the Mean Girls, I guess, pseudo sequel. It's based on the musical that was on Broadway. Tina Fey was still attached to it and all that. But Mean Girls debuted on the weekend at number 1 with 28.6 million. Some people have been reporting it as 28.7. Other outlets have it at 32. I think, but I think that was an overestimation. I could be wrong or what have you. But yeah, Mean Girls took the top place here. In number 2, you have Jason Statham's latest and greatest, The Beekeeper, from MGM Studios, pulling in 16.5 or 16.6 million. This continues the line of action movies where you have kind of like the normal everyday pseudo Joe who was once an ex-Marine or ex-secret intelligent guy, and he has to drop what he's doing and save the world. In this case, Jason Statham is a beekeeper who has to save the world from terrorists or whatever the case is. There was just no way I was going to watch this in the theater. I'm curious about it though, so I may end up watching it when it releases on streaming somewhere. Wonka came in third. This is the little engine that could, and I'm gonna go back to this in a little bit once I go through the rest of the top 10 here. Wonka could very well be the secret hit of the winter season, and I'll discuss that in a bit. The rom-com Anyone But You with Sydney Sweeney is in fourth place there, 7 million. Then we got one of probably the second of the two major family movies in Migration coming in at fifth. This is the animated movie from Universal there, 6.2 million. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom still chugging along in sixth, 5.2 million. You have the latest horror film Night Swim. I believe this is a Blumhouse movie, I think. 4.6 million there. You have another new release, Guntur Karam. This is a movie from India, 4 million. You have Boys in the Boat, MGM, 3.4. And in 10th, we have the last new release of the weekend, The Book of Clarence, starring Lakeith Stanfield, 2.5 million. So, and that is more of like an indie release there. It's probably one of those movies that a lot of people are not going to go out and watch. It'll probably get more play once it finally hits streaming and what have you. But like I said before, Wonka is the thing that stood out to me because it just, after this weekend, passed 500 million at the worldwide box office, which for it itself, I think is a feat that not a lot of people were expecting. You could see internationally, it is almost, I guess you could safe to say, almost double of what it's doing domestically. And I think it is the Paddington effect, to be quite honest with you. Same director as the Paddington movies, 1 and 2. Those were sleeper hits when those movies came out. And I think it's that same effect where it knows how to charm the audience and it really gets you in the feels. The director has a really good sense of doing that. And I've never even seen the Paddington movies. But Paul King, from what I've heard, had set very similar formulas when it came to those two movies. Wonka is my first experience with his movies, and in the beginning, and if you haven't seen the review I've done on this, my out of theater reaction, in the beginning of the movie, it was I wasn't sure where we were going with it. And I thought it was going to be another one of those, oh boy, here we go type of movies. But halfway through, or not even halfway, after a third of the movie, I started feeling myself getting into it. And it's almost as if, and it's like the movie itself charmed me. And I started to really like it. You know, I was getting emotional. I was tapping my feet to the musical numbers. I was laughing at some of the silly jokes. And it's just a very heartwarming, charming type of movie that was very entertaining. I thought Timothée Chalamet was great, even though I do think his singing is a little flat. But overall, it was a fun experience. So for it to be making this much money, how long has it been in theaters now? It has been, let's see here. They usually give you how many weeks it's been out. I'll have to scroll over. So Wonka's been already like a month in at the box office, and it's still in the top 3 domestically. But for it to pull in 500 million, if you look back at a lot of the movie releases that came out last year, not a lot of movies were able to even hit that mark. So I do think that it's pretty safe to say that this was a sleeper hit of the summer, or continues to of the winter. Sorry. And it continues to be that way until the next family film comes out. I think it's pretty safe to say that Wonka is going to be up in the top 5 for a good majority of the rest of the winter. Um, but yeah, I'm curious, like, what movies have y'all seen? What did you decide to watch over the weekend? Obviously, there's also a lot of stuff to catch up on TV. Several shows had their season closures, like Monarch, Legacy of Monsters on Apple. You had The Cursed on Showtime that just finished their run this past weekend. I'm so behind on those things, but I will talk about a show that I binged for the week in the next live show, which might be tomorrow, but definitely it's going to be Thursday. So if you're interested in what that is, stay tuned and pay attention to when that show streams live and all. Um, but Mean Girls was a movie that I thought was interesting because this year we are approaching the 20th anniversary of the original Mean Girls film that came out, starring Lindsay Lohan, Elizabeth Banks, Tina Fey, all those people involved in it. And I had a conversation with Blake about this movie, and it was a movie that myself I never seen. And you're probably like, "What?" Sorry, get rid of this. Um, and you're probably, "Well, how is that possible, Renee? You watch so many damn movies." It was just one of those movies that didn't catch my eye at the time. And I think I wasn't at that age that this would have been a movie that I wanted to see. It came out in 2004. So, like I said, about 20 years ago. At this time, funny story, I was in between jobs. I just got, let's see, I'm trying to think where in the timeline this is. I just got out of a job in the video game industry. This was my second stint in the video game industry. And I decided like I didn't want to go back to like a corporate type job or like, an office job. And it was around the time that I had this dream that I've always wanted to own a video rental store. Like this is more like my nostalgic mindset coming in. Because of course I always remember the days of renting movies, and how much fun and enjoyment I had with that. And this was still very early on in the years of DVD. DVDs are still fresh and new to a lot of people in the consumer market. So we still had VHSs at the time. There were still VHSs being produced for movies coming out. Not at the rate it was before. Definitely DVDs were taking over. So I thought, well, before I even look into that, because I remember there was 2 weeks where I was talking to some guy who owned like a local neighborhood video rental store, like a mom and pop shop. And I was like shadowing him for like a week. I had an accountant look at the financials and all that. Great guy. He had great customers, but he didn't really manage the books properly, if at all. He had like notebooks where he would jot things down, but everything was very loosey-goosey. And it was advised upon me not to even pursue any further. But I wanted to kind of get more experience in that kind of retail market because I never worked in retail at all. I worked in food industry, but I never worked in retail. So I decided that I'm going to go work at Blockbuster. Yes, Blockbuster was still around at that time. But they were definitely on their last legs because Netflix was really like coming in hot and heavy. I've been a member of Netflix for several years already at that point. And they were eating away at the whole rental market. You could see it. And you could see Blockbuster at this time was trying to fight back. They just started their own online rental service, the mail away service. Their difference was that you can rent online DVDs, have it mailed to you, and instead of like mailing it back, if you had a local Blockbuster store, you can just easily go and drop it off at your local Blockbuster instead of putting it in the mail. And then once that registers, they will immediately send you the next DVDs in your queue very fast, very quickly. On top of that, I think if you had an in-store membership, there were some discounts and bonuses that you could get when it comes to in-store rentals and everything. So I got to experience all of that stuff. I got to experience it all. And I was working at Blockbuster for 2 years. And around this time, it's when I was there when Mean Girls was first released on DVD. And having not ever seen the movie, I had to talk it up because obviously it's a fresh new rental. But even without me talking it up, it was flying off the shelves like crazy. And of course, it was hitting the right demographic, the younger female generation at the time, your high schoolers, even some of your younger college kids, adults, parents were renting it for their kids, families were watching it together. It was definitely built in that formula in the late 90s, early 2000s type of comedy, where kind of the mean streak was a main focus in it, being cruel and kind of biting at those people around you. That type of humor was still very much in. Lindsay Lohan was a fresh face that was making a name for herself after Freaky Friday. No one really knew who Elizabeth Banks were, so this is like for many people probably the first exposure she had with an audience like that. Tina Fey was still on SNL along with Tim Meadows and all that. So if you were an SNL person, you'd be like, oh, I know these people. And some other people who were in the movie and everything. But I never watched the movie. I never rented it. As an employee, you're allowed 5 free rentals in a week. And they encourage you, once we get the rental copies of a new release, bring it home, check it out so you could talk about it. I said no. For me, this was just not my movie. I wasn't going to do it. But I had to talk it up. And so I basically just faked it and said, oh, did you ever watch Clueless? This is like the new Clueless. And people are like, oh, okay, yeah, I love Clueless. I'm going to go check it out. Fast forward 20 years later, this past weekend, I finally decided to sit down and watch Mean Girls for the first time ever. And I was not wrong. I was not wrong. It was very much a Clueless-like type of movie. But like I said, with the exception of it really being focused on more of the females in the story, and it really honed in on like the mean behavior girls have towards each other. And the movie in itself, it was trying to empower women to not fight amongst each other and be more supportive of each other, to move ahead in life and move ahead in status. And we're better as a group than individually attacking each other and everything. That in itself is interesting to see that from a movie 20 years ago. And then now, a year after, we're still celebrating the release of Barbie, which pretty much have been doing the same type of messaging to women out there. Of course, in different ways, and adding more stuff to that messaging, because we are in a different era now, where there's still some things that need to be addressed. But it is kind of interesting that 20 years later, we're still trying to do this. We're still trying to empower women to do things for their own and be outspoken and individual, encourage each other to do better, as a gender and all that. So it is very interesting to see that 20 years later after the fact. But we were still putting movies and content out there 20 years ago that was still trying to support all of that. I will say the use of certain phrases and terms were kind of, there was a certain R word. Obviously, I'm not going to repeat it. That was said multiple times over and over again, which obviously you can't do that these days. But it's just so interesting going back and seeing how free we were to use that word. It's very similar to the F word, and I'm not talking about fuck. There's another F word that was thrown around quite frequently back then. So it's very interesting to see how the times have changed for the better, in my opinion. Lindsay Lohan definitely had that charm back in the day. I remember watching Freaky Friday, and I remember really enjoying that movie. I thought it was a very cute movie. The chemistry between her and Jamie Lee Curtis, I thought, was very good. But I was never like someone who's like, oh, I got to watch more movies of Lindsay Lohan, because she spoke to a more younger generation, kind of more like that Disney generation at the time. But I could see why she was such a mega star, and I could see why there was a lot of appeal towards her. She has that charm factor. And I thought she had good chemistry with everyone there. Yeah, Elizabeth Banks, again, was very interesting to see her back then. A very, very young Elizabeth Banks. Tina Fey looks the same. Tim Meadows kind of looks the same, except, he's more grayer now when you look at him. Amy Poehler was in there. So those two were just, Tina Fey and Amy Poehler are just always together. They're just like always tied at the hip, which is fascinating and funny to see. Lacey Chabert. I always forget how you pronounce her name. She didn't really do a lot of live roles that I've seen. I always just remember her as the original voice of Meg on Family Guy. I don't know if a lot of people knew that or remember that far back, but when Family Guy first came out, I believe the first season, maybe even the second season, but definitely the first season, she was the voice of Meg. She was the original voice of Meg. So if you go back and you hear Meg speak, very different to obviously how she sounds like today. And Amanda Seyfried, a very baby-faced Amanda Seyfried, which was really, really interesting to see there. So overall, I personally enjoyed the movie. I did find the whole story background of Lindsay Lohan's character, you having to come from Africa, like her and her family lived in Africa, and then moving to the States, and then her being always homeschooled. So I thought it was kind of funny how they played around with that, and how her point of view and perception is always about the jungle or animalistic behavior. Like when she was at the mall and they were talking about, the fountain where everyone was hanging out, she kind of related that to like the watering hole where you have all of these like animals that could be, against each other or hunting each other, but there's one commonality where everyone needs to drink water. So it's like the one gathering place. The whole thing about ferociousness and wanting to attack your peers, and how she always equated that to like animal behavior. I thought that was kind of interesting and funny. But I also did appreciate the joke about, oh, you're from Africa, but you're white. I did laugh at that quite a bit. I thought that was actually kind of funny when I saw that. But for the overall for the movie, I mean, it was, if I saw this at the time, I would probably would have found it much funnier. But watching it now, it did lose some of its charm, I guess, from back then. Or maybe I'm just too old to appreciate that type of humor. But it wasn't that bad. It wasn't terrible. I could see why this touched a lot of people of that generation at that time. It definitely was a product of the period. And it spoke to that younger female demographic, just very much like Clueless did in the 90s. This did it in the 2000s, right? In my generation, the 80s, you had The Breakfast Club and movies of that similar type of like, right? So it was very, very interesting to see how for each decade, we kind of had that type of representation for the youth of that time. Now, you could make an argument that in the 90s, 2000s, we also had movies like American Pie, right? Road Trip, Euro Trip. So there was definitely a lot of those type of movies. Some may not have been as meaningful as far as messaging is concerned there, like a Breakfast Club or like Mean Girls or Clueless. But regardless, there was still that representation for that generation there. I kind of question myself now. It's like, with this current decade that we're in this generation, what movie like that speaks to the youth of this time? And I'm having a hard time trying to think back on it. But also, I mean, it's early in the morning, and my brain is just not super working at the time. If I'm just to be completely honest. So I may think of it later on. But yeah, Mean Girls. So I can finally scratch it off my list. and I could finally say I watched it. On Letterboxd, I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. Um, it's decent. It's decent, but since I never grew up with it, I'm not going to have that attachment like a lot of people probably do who were growing up at that time and watched that movie at that time. Very much like how I have such a close attachment to movies like The Breakfast Club or The Goonies, because I was of the right time watching that movie when it came out, and it spoke to me, and it spoke to my generation of the time. So I'm curious, like in the chat in the comments, let me know what movies of your generation growing up touched you in that way, or you kind of held within you as a meaningful movie of that generation of the time you were growing up. I would love to see that and see where does that land with a lot of you. All right, so that is the box office there. So you know what? I think it's time. It's time for us to let's talk about headlines. So this is a segment of the show where we talk about the headlines from this past weekend or the previous day, since it is the morning after. So let's talk about headlines, shall we? Obviously the big headlines, like I mentioned from the top of the show, is results from Critics' Choice and the Emmys. So I'm going to pull up some of the information here as far as winners and all. So just bear with me as I pull this information up. Emmy winners. All right. The one thing I will say, because I do get like the Twix notifications when it comes to winners and who was announced. I saw a huge trend where majority of, especially when it comes to the television stuff, The Bear, Succession, and Beef, those were the three major properties that I constantly kept seeing wins coming in from, which is extremely fascinating because last year, arguably, you can say that that was one of the strongest years of television that we've had in some times. You could easily actually say that for the last couple of years now. Well, we've been getting very strong TV product. So much so that it is rival. Maybe it's time for some more coffee. I'm going to drink some coffee. Do I have some coffee drinking music? Yeah. All right, thank you. All right, take it easy. So it's going toe to toe with the movies, with the movie industry. You have a lot of strong TV, and it's competing with movies. So much so that obviously we've been seeing a decline in movie theater attendance. A lot of people just rather watch shit at home, and it makes sense. And obviously, we can talk about the pandemic and how that helped kind of enforce that more so. But for strong years in television, to have three main properties stand out above everything is extremely fascinating. So that's something that I did notice, that it caught my eye immediately when I saw that as the winners were being announced and everything. So first off, let's talk about the Critics' Choice Awards. Now, if you're not familiar with Critics' Choice, this is the awards show that is voted on by critics. You know, critics of film. I believe they do TV too, film and TV, right? Hold on, I just want to So I want to make sure I got the right list here. Drama. Yeah, film and TV. So they cover the gamut, the entertainment gamut there. Some people pay attention to this particular award, some people don't, because again, it's critics, right? And we all know how people think about critics. So, but here I'm on Dark Horizons here. Oppenheimer won for Best Picture. But look at, just seeing the movies that were nominated, you can kind of see where the critics' minds were at. You have American Fiction, Barbie, The Color Purple, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Past Lives, Poor Things, Saltburn. I love that I see Saltburn in there. And that's probably because, again, these are critics, right? So it's great to see that Saltburn's in that list. If you listen to the Movie Time podcast, Blake and I, we just put out our predictions or our attempt at predicting the nominations for the Oscars. And this list is very similar to our list, I would say. Best Actor, you had Paul Giamatti winning for The Holdovers. Now, Golden Globes, we had Cillian Murphy win for Best Drama Movie, and Paul Giamatti won for Comedy Musical. Again, the Golden Globes I can't take seriously because they can't seem to understand what their categories are, and I feel like they just make up shit, to be honest with you. But then you could see those who are nominated here. Best Actress winners, we have Emma Stone for Poor Things, which is interesting that she won over Lily Gladstone. I feel like Lily Gladstone is losing steam the more and more we get into award season here. That could easily change with SAG coming in. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there with SAG. But Emma Stone seems to be riding that horse. It helps that also her movie Poor Things came out later on in the year. So it might be more fresh in people's minds. But we'll see how things pan out. Supporting actor Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer. I do feel like he is running away with this category with everything that he attends. Supporting actress, you had Davine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. I think that's an excellent choice. So it was interesting to see that. For now, this is a category we don't normally see. Best Young Actor, Actress, and the winner here is Dominic Sessa for The Holdovers, which I totally 1000% agree with. When Blake and I were talking about some of the fresh faces of 2023, we talked about Dominic and how his performance was so good. And this was his debut movie too. Because I was kind of struggling trying to think, have I seen this guy somewhere before? Because, he's such a good actor, and it baffles me that I'm not familiar with his work. And no, it turns out that this was his first movie. So I think that was great to see. Best Acting Ensemble went to Oppenheimer. Surprised that it didn't go to Barbie, but Oppenheimer is, again, proving to be quite strong in the award circuit. Best Director went to Nolan for Oppenheimer. Original Screenplay went to Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. Interesting. Again, there's that debate in the Oscars that they're saying that Barbie qualifies for adapted and not original. Here, they gave it its proper due, according to the critics, that it was original screenplay for Barbie. Adapted screenplay went to American Fiction, which was interesting to see. Cinematography went to Hoyt van Hoytema. Love that dude's name for Oppenheimer. He is a great cinematographer, and I totally agree with that choice there. Best Production Design went to Barbie. Not surprised there. Best Editing went to Oppenheimer. Costume Design went to Barbie. Hair and Makeup went to Barbie. Visual Effects went to Oppenheimer. Really interesting there. Best Comedy went to Barbie. Best Animated Feature, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So The Boy and the Heron didn't win this. Best Foreign Language Film went to Anatomy of a Fall. Best Song went to I'm Just Ken. Best Score went to Ludwig Göransson for Oppenheimer. Great choice there. Now we go into more of the TV categories here. So Drama Series, Succession. Look at all of these nominations here. You have Succession, The Crown, Last of Us, The Morning Show, Winning Time, the great series. I think that series got canceled way too soon. Very unfortunate there. But if you ask a lot of people what were their favorite things they loved watching in the past year or two, you could easily state any one of these shows, right? But Succession, overall winner, and again, I'm not surprised. I don't blame it. That show was fantastic. I finally had a chance to binge the entire series last year, and my gosh, it was fantastic. And I do think that because it is a series that came to a close, that it finalized and ended, as we often see, that's usually when they win all the major awards for that following award season, because it's kind of like a send off, especially if you end as strong as Succession did. Actor in drama series, you have Kieran Culkin for Succession again. Best actress, you had Sarah Snook, Succession. So Succession was like cleaning up shop here. Supporting actress, you have Billy Crudup for The Morning Show for supporting actor. Supporting actress, you have Elizabeth Debicki for The Crown. She's a great actress. Love that. Comedy series, you have The Bear. Look at all of these series. Abbott Elementary, Barry, which is my own personal favorite. Marvelous Miss Maisel, Poker Face, Reservation Dogs, Shrinking, another great new series that came out last year. And What We Do in the Shadows. I know so many people that will easily say they loved any one of these above the rest, right? But The Bear coming out as a clear winner here. You have actor in a comedy series, Jeremy Allen White for The Bear. I personally would have loved to seen Bill Hader win, because I thought he did a great job. And Barry came to a close last year too, so it would have been great to see that. Best actress in a comedy went to Ayo Edebiri for The Bear. So again, The Bear doing well in the comedy section here. Best supporting actor, you have Ebon Moss-Bachrach for The Bear again. Best supporting actress went to Meryl Streep for Only Murders in the Building. Best limited series, Beef. There you go. You got Beef. Now, when it comes to limited series, look at all of these. Daisy Jones and the Six, Fargo, Lessons in Chemistry, Love and Death, which I loved. That was a great limited series that came out last year. A Murder at the End of the World. I mean, so much good stuff here. Daisy Jones and the Six, so many people were talking about that series when it was out. But you have Beef there. Best movie made for TV, Quiz Lady. That's the Awkwafina and Sandra Oh movie that came out on Hulu. I haven't seen it yet. Maybe I should. But good to see that at least No One Will Save You was nominated here, because I do think that was one of the best, I guess, made for streaming movies that came out last year. Best actor in a limited series or movie made for TV went to Steven Yeun for Beef. And then Ali Wong, his co-star, won for actress in that category. So there you go. Amazing to see. Supporting actor went to Jonathan Bailey for Fellow Travelers, and supporting actress went to Maria Bello in Beef. Best foreign language series went to Lupin, on Netflix, not to be confused with Rupan Sensei, Lupin the Third, that I know from Japan. Best animated series went to Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. Oh man, I haven't seen that yet. I'm so behind. I've been dying to see that, so that could be next. Best talk show went to John Oliver. Best comedy special went to John Mulaney. Yeah, that sounds right. And that's basically it. So yeah, so that was the Critics' Choice Awards there. But again, like I mentioned, when it comes to TV, you are already starting to see kind of like a trend happening. Succession and The Bear and Beef. Those were like the three things that stood out, right? As far as the movie side of things, it's been very kind of not predictable, but it has been pretty constant between Golden Globes and Critics' Choice. Again, it'll be very interesting to see what happens with SAG and the DGA and how they kind of go with things. So yeah, we'll see how things go there moving forward. Now let's get into the Emmys. The Emmys aired last night. And the one thing I should mention about the Emmys here, which is also kind of interesting and fascinating in its own right, let me increase the so you could easily read this. The one thing I find very interesting about the Emmys, especially this one, is this was pushed back several times already because of the actors and writers strike. This is supposed to be celebrating TV up until a certain point of early last year. So anything that came out after that cutoff time was obviously not included for this awards show. So I think series like was it Lessons in Chemistry, Love and Death, I think they weren't qualified for this Emmys. I'm trying to think what else. If you notice, the Bear that is being considered here is the first season of the Bear, I believe, not the second season, which debuted last year. So it may have been kind of confusing to a lot of people because they're probably wondering, well, how come this show wasn't included, or how come that show wasn't included or mentioned? There was a cutoff time, and I think because of the multiple delays that this awards show went through, it made it feel more like they were backlogged, and it made it feel more strange, right, in a certain way. So I could imagine that there were probably some confusion when people were hearing the winners being announced, or those that were nominated. You know, why is it? Why does it seem like it's off or whatever? But let's go through the winner list here, and again, you'll see that the trend carried on from the Critics' Choice all the way through to the Emmys. So for Outstanding Drama Series, you have Succession. Outstanding Comedy, you have The Bear. Lead Actress in a Drama Series went to Succession. Sarah Snook. Sarah Snook has had a wonderful award season, and well deserved too. Lead Actor, Kieran Culkin. I'm so happy for him too. That's Succession there. Limited Series went to Beef. Outstanding Lead Actress went to Ali Wong, again for Beef. Steven Yeun, again, closing out. Actor in Limited Series went to Beef. Variety Special went to Elton John Live for Farewell from Dodger Stadium. And this award basically, I believe, helped solidify his GOAT status. Grammys, Oscars, Emmys, and Tonys. Right? And A is something else. EGOT, sorry. Did I say GOAT? What the hell's wrong with me? Wake up, Renee. His EGOT. So Elton John is an official EGOT winner with the Emmys, the Grammys, the Oscars, and the Tonys. So he's officially EGOT status. So well deserved. Congratulations to him on that awesome accomplishment. Outstanding Director went to Succession, Mark Mylod. Again, well deserved. I can't argue with that. I mean, watching that series, it's such a fantastic series. Outstanding Writing went to Beef. Again, closing Succession, Beef. Succession, Beef. It's amazing with so much good TV out there, how these two were the ones that stand out the most. Outstanding Writing in a Drama Series went to Succession, Jesse Armstrong there. Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Limited Series went to Blackbird. Actor in a Limited or Anthology Series or Movie went to Paul Walter Hauser in Blackbird. Oh, it's nice to see him win something there. Then you have Outstanding Directing for a Limited or Anthology Series went to Beef again. Unbelievable. Outstanding Talk Series went to The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, which is very fitting because that was his last season. So a nice little send-off there. Outstanding Writing for a Variety Show went to John Oliver. Outstanding Reality Competition Program went to RuPaul's Drag Race. Awesome. Never watched it. Good for them. The Bear won Outstanding Writing for a Comedy Series. Outstanding Directing for a Comedy Series. The Bear. I do find it interesting that The Bear kind of... because the year before, Abbott Elementary was getting all the love, and now The Bear kind of swooped in and took that reign. Outstanding Supporting Actress for a Limited or Anthology Series went to Niecy Nash Betts for Dahmer. I've heard a lot of good things about that series. I need to check that out. Outstanding scripted variety series went to John Oliver. Outstanding lead actor went to Jeremy Allen White for The Bear. You have outstanding supporting actor, once again, Ebon Musk-Backrack for The Bear. Supporting actor in a drama series went to Matthew Macfadyen for Succession. Outstanding supporting actress went to Jennifer Coolidge for The White Lotus. And again, I could be wrong, but I think I'm not. This was for the first season of White Lotus, I think, or was it second season? Because I think the second season came out, might have missed the cutoff. I think. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But let me just double check here. Second season White Lotus release date. Second season October 30 of last year. Was this last year? No, this was 2022. So this did qualify. Okay, so this was for the second season of White Lotus. And for Jennifer to win, that makes a lot of sense because, spoiler, that was her send off from the series. Very well done, and she is just really, really damn good. So yeah, so that was the two major awards show from the weekend there. I to be honest with you, the one thing that, again, like I said, stood out to me that was the most surprising was just how common the winners were and how it trended for the both awards shows. Three main titles: Succession, Beef, and The Bear. So for me, that was like really fascinating to see. So I wonder, out of the two awards shows and all the winners listed there, what surprised you the most? Who do you think was snubbed? I mean, I think when it comes to TV, you could easily say so many people probably got snubbed because it was a very strong year in TV last year. A lot of strong performances, strong programs. When you have TV that is as strong and powerful as it is, I mean, it's hard to, at this point, say which is better than the others, right? Because it's very easy to say that there are so many good shows for everybody out there now. It's a little bit cut and dry when it comes to movies, because even though everything is subjective, still it's very easy to tell, okay, which movie probably is better than the others when it comes to quality, performances, and all. But when you have so much strong performances across multiple properties, multiple series, shows, limited series, made for TV movies, what have you, it's kind of hard at that point now to say, all right, I don't think we can award everybody here, right? So I found that to be extremely fascinating. And congrats to all the winners there. Just to put things into perspective, let's go back here to the browser. Most nominated shows for the Emmys. Let's look at that real quick here. So you can see Succession was nominated 27 times. The Last of Us 24 and got pretty much shut out. They didn't win a single awards, which is painful. 23 for White Lotus, 21 for Ted Lasso, another shutout there, no winners for them. 14 for Miss Maisel, 13 for The Bear, 13 for Beef, 13 for Dahmer, and 12 for Wednesday. It's a lot of nominees there, but you could tell that the big celebration was indeed Succession, as it closed out its run on HBO. It definitely was well awarded for their achievement there. All right, let's see what else we have. Headlines wise, let's see. We have I talked about Wonka passing 500 million worldwide, which I think that is such an amazing accomplishment and feat for that movie. If you didn't know, and I'm just going to double check to make sure that if this is still active or not. If you're an AMC moviegoer and you love the Nicole Kidman, the Nicole Kidman AMC pledge that you are treated to before every movie screening at AMC theaters, if your fandom and love for that is far above and beyond anyone else like myself, you too can be a part of history and bid on the suit that she wore in that pledge as it's being auctioned at Sotheby's this week. This is fascinating. It's being auctioned off for $5,000 to $10,000 as part of Sotheby's new Visions of America series. Let's see. This goes on to say what kind of suit it is. It is a gray wool and cashmere crystal pinstripe jumpsuit. It was featured as Look 33 in the Michael Kors 40th anniversary fall-winter of 2021 collection. So there you go. There's some history there. I guess they have an exhibit that will display all this stuff, including that suit, which is open to the public from the 12th to the 19th, with the actual auctions running from the 19th to the 29th. So you still have...
Feeling better?
Hello? Jesus?
On top of the world!
What the hell is that?
Before
video ad.
Advil.
All right. Shut your face. Yeah. You have a lot of time yet to go ahead and bid for your chance to own a piece of history. Go get your Nicole Kidman suit. Which I thought was pretty damn hilarious there. Let's see. Oh, we should definitely talk about this, because this is something obviously I find that I kind of touched based on last week with my last show, the whole Jonathan Majors situation, right? So just to do a quick recap, Jonathan Majors was accused of assaulting an ex-girlfriend. It was caught on camera, multiple accounts, text messages, voicemails, all that stuff. It came to a trial. Verdict was announced, I want to say in October, November-ish. I forgot which month it was. Guilty. Within that same hour, Marvel dropped him from all of their projects. His movie magazine dreams have fallen off and probably will never see the light of day at this point. It was a promising movie that, again, promised another great performance from Jonathan himself. He decided to, last week, give his very first interview with Good Morning America. I reacted to it on the stream last week and thought it was fascinating in its own way. And it kind of shows you how much of a narcissist he actually really is. He almost kind of feels like Kang. I felt like they did kind of cast the perfect person to portray Kang. And it's one of those things where you never knew how a person can be until you actually see them be them, right? In a way. And I just think that that interview was just poorly timed in his part. He shouldn't have done that so quickly and so fast. But yeah, that's neither here or there at this point. But something that did drop, another piece of news that dropped last Friday to keep the Jonathan Majors train going. And that is, he is dropped from another project, which is no big surprise here. But he has been dropped from the Dennis Rodman movie, 48 Hours in Vegas. Lionsgate stating here, no longer behind the project, which the filmmakers will now shop to other buyers, obviously with another person in mind, probably at this point. The article goes on to say that Jonathan Majors has been let go from this project. Um, the fact that Lionsgate just basically said we don't even want the movie anymore. It was a film that was being developed by Lord Miller. Uh, Phil, Lord and Miller, as you know them as, was also part of this. Um, so obviously we're waiting for Jonathan Majors' sentence to come up in February. I to this day I still don't think he's going to get any jail time. But this is punishment enough, I think. His movie career, his Hollywood career is donezo for at least the next couple of years. Who knows how long? He may eventually make a comeback, and I think it's possible for him to do so. But all the major stuff that he was tied to is out the window at this point already. Um, so yeah, and this was a movie that when it was announced and he was cast, I thought, well, this sounds like a great idea on paper. I do believe that he would have portrayed an interesting version of Dennis Rodman. The story in itself is fascinating. And if you don't know, this tells the story about Dennis Rodman when he was part of the Bulls and they're going through their championship run, one of their championship runs. And right before, I guess, tip off or one of their games, no one could find Dennis Rodman. And he went on a 48-hour kind of just drinking party binge in Vegas. And basically they had to go fetch him to play. And he went from that to the arena to play the game that he had to play. So in itself, it's just a very fascinating story, right? Here it recaps exactly what I just said. I didn't even see this in the article, but 48 Hours in Vegas features a script from Jordan Van Dina that focuses on the Chicago Bulls forward Rodman taking a mind-clearing trip to Las Vegas during the 98 finals, NBA finals. The getaway for Rodman, who joined the NBA Hall of Fame in 2011 and was known for his outlandish behavior and attire, was featured in the Michael Jordan-centric ESPN docuseries The Last Dance that aired in 2020. So yeah, that's one of the documentaries that really put it more into light for me. I knew about this story, but I didn't know how bananas it was until I saw it portrayed in that documentary. He was hanging out with I forgot who his girlfriend was with at the time. But it's just so like batty and so nuts that this was a real thing that happened. But yeah, so now that movie is donezo. It would have made for a fascinating movie. I could see it be, and now since you had Lord and Miller attached to it, it's definitely going to be more on the comedic side of things. So I could have easily have seen it like a Dumb Money type of movie, a Vice type of movie, like one of those type of movies, or even like an I, Tonya, which is kind of like more of a satirical look at the actual in real life situation and scenario. And it could have been a great thing for Majors to be a part of, but unfortunately, that is no longer the case there. And can't say I'm surprised. I mean, again, it's just one of those things where you can't expect something announced as far as a guilty verdict, right, for his assault to his ex-girlfriend, and for his current projects just to be like, okay, well, now that's done with, oh, we could just continue moving forward. No, especially once he's dropped from Marvel and Disney, that's it. His career is just done for now. And it's unfortunate because, again, such a promising career who is like really, really at the top of his game. And yeah, it is very, very unfortunate to see that all come down to a head there. All right. There was this one piece of news that was announced as we were going into the weekend, which had me really elated. I was so excited and thrilled when this was announced, and I couldn't have been happier for those who were involved. As some of you may know or not know, I am a big Daredevil fan. Daredevil um, is one of my favorite comic book characters, along with Hawkeye and Green Lantern. Those were growing up some of my favorite comic book characters, especially Daredevil, because Daredevil is from New York, Hell's Kitchen, um, a character with disabilities, but heightened senses and reflexes, and he can go to toe with people like the Kingpin and all that. And I always just was fascinated about this character for the longest time. I used to read all the comic books. When Kevin Smith did his writing run in Marvel for the Daredevil Reborn series, I thought, oh my God, this is some of the best stuff I've read in some time. Even when the Ben Affleck movie came out, I was a fan of it, even though I can watch it now and laugh at it. It has its moments, but yeah, it's not like the best thing, obviously. But it was the Netflix series that came out. I was like, here we go. Now we are getting a representation of Daredevil that I've been dying to see for the longest time. The grittiness, the visceral feeling of the combat and the violence, and the character, the realness of the character, the relatability, the feeling of him in New York. Like, they got all of that right. And arguably, it is the better of all the Marvel series that came out on Netflix, was Daredevil. Those fight scenes alone, you have so many people ever since that have been trying to mimic and copy those sequences. The long one-shotted action sequences that go through a hallway or staircases, or through a room. We saw it in Echo, in the Echo series. Like in the first episode, her first major fight scene, they tried to mimic that whole Daredevil feel, with that one shot kind of, pan and scan kind of action sequence there. Was it successful? Not quite, but it was a good attempt. But ever since Marvel started Disney Plus and they were putting shows in Disney Plus, everyone was wondering, well, what's going to happen to the Netflix shows, right? And then they said, like, the Netflix series are done. They're not going to continue on with that. I believe the last Marvel series that came out on Netflix was season 2 of The Punisher. I believe that was one of the last ones that came out. And then there's always a question of, well, are they going to be canon? What's going to happen with all those things? And it was always in limbo for a very long time, to the point where you had the actors involved, like Charlie Cox, saying, well, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I have not been approached or talked to about it in reprising the role, continuing the role, what have you. But a lot of that was also kind of like, I can't really say, if I say something, maybe, the goons from Disney and Marvel are going to come to my house and knock me over the head or what have you, right? So obviously can't talk too much about it. Then a miracle happened. Spider-Man No Way Home comes out, and we get, bam, Matt Murdock representing Peter Parker. And Charlie Cox reprising his role, showing up, as if that movie didn't have enough surprises and cameos, right? That was the first one in that movie where people just erupted. Like, oh my God, here he is. Amazing. Then, of course, it was announced that Disney Plus will be working on a brand new Daredevil show called Daredevil Born Again. I believe they're calling it, right? Plus, it's like 20 plus episodes. So it's going to be one of the longest Marvel shows on Disney Plus when it comes out. They, recasted Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio to reprise his role as Kingpin. So the excitement once again was building up, building. Unfortunately, certain names were left out. And these are people that, in my opinion, were also a very integral part of the Daredevil universe and some of my favorite characters too. Elden, Henson, and Deborah and Woll played the roles of Foggy Nelson and Karen Page in the Netflix Daredevil. Their names have been left off of the recasting roles and the announcements. So even interviews with Deborah and Elden, they said we were not approached. Signs aren't pointing too good. Things aren't looking good for us to reprise our roles there. And it is what it is. We enjoyed our time on the Netflix show. And obviously we were happy for Charlie Cox moving forward, Vincent D'Onofrio, all that. Boom, boom, boom. Then we saw Kingpin return in the Hawkeye series. A kind of lessened or dummied down version of the Kingpin that we got in Netflix's Daredevil show, but with with little glimpses of, okay, that is the Kingpin I remember from the Netflix show. But I think for the most part it was pretty much tamed, right? Then we got She-Hulk, where we saw Daredevil in return in full Daredevil glory, in the yellow suit, mind you. But it was done more as a comedic effect, right? A kind of romance fling with Tatiana Maslany's She-Hulk there. And of course, people were kind of like, oh no, is this the kind of Daredevil we're going to get on Disney? Blah, blah, blah. And then, there are more rumors and things going around that no, the Daredevil show on Disney is going to be gritty. It's going to be a return to form like we saw on Netflix. So people who are looking for that, don't be afraid. Don't be worried. We're going to return to that. Yada, yada, yada. Right. Then there was an announcement that the Daredevil series had to be halted, mainly because of the writer's strike and the actor's strike. But unfortunately, it looks like things weren't going well as far as the writing was concerned. So they had to go back to the drawing board and pretty much rewrite the series. Was this a blessing in disguise? Who knows? But this was all done around the same time where Marvel, you could see Kevin Feige is like taking a step back a bit and be like, look, a lot of shit's not working. She-Hulk, Secret Invasion, Quantumania. Yeah, these movies, these shows are underperforming big time. We need to take a step back and kind of rein things in. And Daredevil needs to be reined in a bit. So it could be a blessing in disguise, right? This could be very much good for us in the long run. And then we had more interviews with Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio saying that, yes, the tone is going to be very close to the Netflix series, yada, yada, yada. Echo, which promised or kind of hinted that it was part of this whole Daredevil universe, especially when we found out that she has close ties with the Kingpin, which was kind of revealed in the Hawkeye series. We finally got her show released after it was delayed a couple of times. Was it a great show? It was mid, as the young kids say today. Great performances from the lead actress. I'm not gonna, say anything bad about that. I thought she was very strong. But there are just certain things that happened throughout the show that I was just like, did we really need this? But it gave us more of Kingpin, more of Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin. And it kind of gave us a little hint as to, okay, where are we going with this character and what tone are we trying to set here? The show itself was TVMA. It wasn't 100% R-rated, but there was definitely some violent scenes there that kind of harkened back to Netflix. But the way I described it last week was it felt like a young kid trying to act like an adult. It felt like Disney Plus was trying to act like the bigger adult of Netflix. That's how it felt like to me. The Kingpin, The portrayal of Kingpin was, again, same thing like Hawkeye. For the most part, we got glimpses that kind of remind us of the Kingpin that we loved in the Netflix show. But then there are also moments where it kind of felt a little watered down and Disney-fied. Okay. We did get a quick glimpse at Charlie Cox's Daredevil again, this time back in the red suit, with a cool little fight sequence in the beginning, but it was like 5 minutes. It was just a tease, a cock tease. As we say in the biz, this was a cock tease. Thank you. Cock tease. So we're like, all right, you know what? At least I'm not discouraged from the Daredevil show coming out. I was always looking forward to it, and I still am. But I'm starting to feel like, okay, maybe this could be something. Maybe there's a return to form here when it comes to Daredevil, as far as Daredevil on TV. Then on Friday it was announced, and I was so happy. Elden, Henson, and Deborah and Woll are back, baby. Foggy and Karen Page are back. Why are you laughing? That's not funny. But they are back, reprising their roles for the new Daredevil Born Again series, and I couldn't be happier. Honestly, I could not be happier. So back here in Dark Horizons. So yeah, Elden, Henson, Deborah, and Woll are reportedly set to return as Foggy Nelson and Karen Page in Marvel Studios' Daredevil Born Again series for the Disney Plus service. The Snyder, who I am very familiar with, I follow him on Twitter, Twix. I knew of him for quite some time. If you don't know who he is, you gotta, on YouTube, search Jeff Snyder versus Uwe Boll. He was one of the critics that took on Uwe Boll in the boxing ring and lost terribly. That was my first awareness of this guy. He's like a scoops reporter. He does some reviews and all that, but his main job in Hollywood or in the business is he's a scoops guy, right? He was part of the Schmodown, movie trivia Schmodown, that lasted for many years on YouTube. Huge fan of that show. Christian Harloff and Mark Ellis, they're running the show there, or previously running the show there. So I'm very familiar. He is Jeff Snyder's now doing his own kind of scoops newsletter business and everything, trying to do on his own website. And he breaks stuff, right? And he broke this news on Friday evening. The studio itself has not made any official confirmation, but he is reporting that the pair are reprising the roles they played for all 3 seasons of the Daredevil series on Netflix, plus also multiple episodes of The Defenders and The Punisher. The news comes as a very welcome surprise, as before now it seemed as though neither actor was returning for the series, and not for a lack of desire or enthusiasm on either of their parts, going by interview quotes. See, this is what I was alluding to before. Rather, it appeared as though Disney wasn't going to include the characters back when Born Again was planned as an 18-episode season, which was later found out to be more of a legal procedural. Then came the news in October that the series, which had halted production due to the strikes, was set to be completely creatively overhauled into something more akin to the old Netflix series. Again, this is stuff that I've already said. So the fact that this article is backing me up and I haven't read this article yet, at least shows you that I somewhat know what I'm talking about.
Yeah! I'm gonna come.
Thank you. Me too. Head writers Chris Ord and Matt Corman stepped back, with Dario Scardapane, but they were involved in Jack Ryan and The Punisher, are taking over as the new showrunner, whilst Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, responsible for Loki and Moon Knight, are now the directors. Marvel's keeping some scenes from the few episodes that have already been shot, but will shoot new scenes and material for those Most of the show's run remains left to film and is expected to be shot throughout much of the year. Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio recently reprised their respective Daredevil and Kingpin roles in Marvel Studios' Echo series. That show launched this week. Well, this is last week. And combined with comments from Marvel and recently altered listings on the Disney Plus service, have confirmed that the Marvel Netflix series are officially in MCU canon. And that is correct. If you go to Disney Plus and you go into the Marvel section, you will see that all seasons of the Netflix Marvel series, so that's 3 seasons of Daredevil, the 2 seasons of Luke Cage, the 2 seasons of The Punisher, 2 seasons of Jessica Jones, the 1 season of The Defenders, and I think they only did 1 season. No, I think they did 2 seasons of Iron Fist, which I am happy to forget all of it, but they are all part of the MCU canon and is listed as such in the Marvel section of the Disney Plus platform. Plus, in the Echo series, you could see that they made ties to references that they did on a Netflix series that involves Kingpin's character, the whole Wall situation, the staring at the wall, the abuse his father has done to his mom, how he had to beat his dad to death, all this stuff, the hammer, everything that was introduced in the Netflix show was kind of reconfirmed and reshown in the Echo series to kind of help solidify that this is all canon and this is the same version of Kingpin. Not just, not just, hey, yeah, we got the right actor here, so it's familiarity. No, everything is pretty much canon and sticking to the original plan as far as the characters are concerned. And that is what we're getting for the future iterations of these characters. So, of course, I was extremely excited and elated about that. But when this news dropped, the more so I was just so happy because Deborah was such like a great character in that Netflix series, and it's a necessary character because it kind of it was kind of like the counterpart to Charlie Cox's character. It kind of helped ground him in a way. The Foggy character too. Like these two characters helped grounded Charlie Cox's Daredevil, Matt Murdock, and without them, it just would have felt weird and different, right? We probably would have gotten like a brooding Charlie Cox, the version of Daredevil, or someone who's just blah blah blah. We're definitely not going to be getting the same She-Hulk Daredevil Matt Murdock character because that was just a little bit more campy, more Ally McBeal like. That was done for kind of more comedic purposes, sarcastic and satirical purposes there. But when we return to form here with this new series, Born Again, we needed those counterparts to Matt Murdock to help ground him and help him not get too involved and caught up in the whole Daredevil persona, which could eat him alive. And we actually saw that in the Netflix series, right? And there's a good case study there, like how this obsession of having to fight the wrongs of your enemies and all that can consume you. And it was these two characters that kind of helped ground him. Plus, I think Deborah is such a great actress. I loved her when I was first introduced to her in what is that? True Blood on HBO. I thought she was one of the characters that I loved the most from that show. I remember I met her briefly at New York Comic Con when they were promoting season 1 of the Netflix show, and she was very friendly and delightful and just she loves the fans, and she's a nerd herself. I believe she does D&D streams with groups out there. So she's someone that speaks to the fandom, right? The Foggy character too, like I thought very necessary and a character that I loved and then didn't like and then loved again as the series was coming to an end. It was one of those weird arcs there. So it was very, very refreshing to finally see that it looks like these two important characters in the Daredevil mythos is coming back for the new series that is completely being overhauled, rewritten will be filming throughout this year, and we'll get to see by next year, I believe, on Disney Plus, if everything works out well there. So I am extremely excited for that. I can't wait to check that out. And yeah, I think again, this is one of the major wins from the weekend, in my opinion, when it comes to headlines and all. And I think it's great. You know, it's very exciting and it's good news. It's something just to look forward to whenever I hear about this series talked about and being announced. So yeah, so I'm curious what you think about that. Are you excited as much as I am about that news? Because I am totally excited. I cannot wait for them to come back. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Okay. Chill the fuck out. In other piece of headline news. So this one was interesting. I thought this was very, very funny. So it was reported that Dave Filoni organized a Godzilla Minus One screening at Lucasfilm headquarters and invited the director, Takashi Yamazaki, to do a Q&A with those in attendance. Now, you could easily see this, hear this, and read this report and say, like, oh, that's nice of Dave. He's kind of like rewarding his team to watch a great movie. You know, one of the most well-received movies of last year, which was a major surprise. You know, because you know they're currently working on the early beginnings of the Mandalorian Grogu movie that was announced last week or 2 weeks ago at this point. What other projects that they're working on, because we all know Filoni is now head of creative there at Lucasfilm. Ahsoka season 2 is being worked on, so I know that they're working on that. So, you know, it's again, on the surface level, you're like, oh, how nice of Filoni to be able to treat his team and those people he's working with to just watch a great movie. What's going on, AKB? This was very cool to hear. I'm assuming you're referring to the Daredevil news, or maybe the news I'm talking about now. I don't know. But regardless, both pieces of news are very, very interesting and fascinating and good to hear. But here's what I look at. This is how I took this. And I'm talking about the Filoni treating his whoever to the screening of Godzilla Minus One with a special Q&A from the director himself. Everyone take notes. You're watching this movie, everyone take notes, because we need to start implementing these type of practices in our projects. Godzilla Minus One was reportedly had a budget of under $14 million. When they interviewed the director, he kind of smirked and scoffed and just said, "Oh, 14 million. If only it was that much." So it could be much less than what was reported. Plus, not only did he direct, he wrote and even did a lot of the special effects himself. Now, when you have studios like Lucasfilm, Marvel, Disney as a whole being looked at under a microscope because of the amount of money that they're spending on their productions and putting out mediocre product, mediocre results, mediocre to god-awful. And it shouldn't be that way. Things need to change and things need to turn around quick. So you know Filoni's like, we need to take notes from this, because for a non-US produced movie with a very small budget to impact the audiences the way it did, great story, emotional human connection, amazing giant monster effects and scenes. To accomplish all of that, globally make $100 million. Think about that. $100 million on a budget that is under 14 million worldwide. Worldwide. I'm going to pull up some stats. All right, let's look at some stats. Godzilla Minus One. So, I mean, I don't know how caught up this website is as far as numbers and box office numbers are concerned. But regardless, domestically 50 million, approaching 51 million. International box office around 39 million with an overall 88, 89 million. They're going to hit that 100 million if they haven't already done so. Again, I don't know how delayed the numbers we're reporting here for this film particularly. And if you want to see what I'm talking about, this is what I'm looking at right here. Oh yeah, AKB. That director did all of that. And that hit me when I first watched the movie, because at the end credits it said written, director, special effects by my man Takashi Yamazaki. I was like, wow, this dude did it all, man. But yeah, to be that successful in accomplishing all of that, Dave is like, I got to get my team on the same page here, because we need this. We need to take notes from this, and we need to figure out how we can utilize our creative senses, be a little bit more minimal, write great emotional stories with impelling characters that, touch on the human form, the human, the human sense, the human connection. And we still need to have our creatures, our fight scenes, all that good stuff. We need to have that all work at a lesser budget. People had their notebooks in hand and people were taking notes. And that Q&A session must have been mind-blowing. If I can somehow find any recording of that Q&A session, I would die. I would love it if I could just hear the type of questions that were being asked of the director there, because you could learn a lot from that, and I'm hoping that they did, because when you look at some of these budgets with a lot of these more recent productions from Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, all that stuff, and you look at the end results, I mean, let's look at the last Lucasfilm movie. Right? Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Now, remind me, or maybe you could educate me on, why does a movie like that need to cost $295 million? Why? $295 million for an Indiana Jones movie? Really? Nah, son. And how much did it make at the box office? Only 302. And also keep in mind, this budget does not count for marketing, any kind of PR that they had to do, right? Tie-ins, all that shit. Please. This movie lost them money. Right? Marvel, Secret Invasion. What the fuck? $212 million for Secret Invasion. For that piece of shit series. You gotta be joking. You gotta be kidding me. No way. Can they continue working like that? They could not continue making a business like that. No, son. Mm-mm. They won't be able to sustain that. AKB chiming in. Oh yeah, Filoni is mandating his team to be more focused on telling stories better. Damn right. And not just telling stories, special effects, all that stuff. How can we save money? Be more cost efficient, right? What else? How about Mandalorian? Mandalorian season 3 budget. Now, I don't know how accurate this could be or if this is even reported anywhere, but it doesn't look like it is. Okay. I thought so. Oh, wait, here we go. Well, this is just a guess. And this looks like this is maybe. Good job, IGN. You have a page that doesn't work. Congratulations. Yet you wonder why I don't like you. But according to this, 15 million per episode, making season of 10 around 120 million. And I believe that's season 1. Okay, so if we're going off of that risk for season 1 alone, right, you would assume season 2, season 3 kept going up, up, and up, right? Ahsoka series budget. 100 million for Ahsoka. Now, it looked like it cost that much. But does it have to? For a streaming service series? You know, no one's going out and paying a ticket to watch this. It's just going off of a monthly subscription, right? How can we cut this budget down and still make it more meaningful and impactful for the story we're trying to tell? Skeleton Crew, it says right here. A series we don't even know when's coming out yet. It's 136 million. I wish I had money to throw around like this. You know, here's a question for you all. If you had 100 million to throw around for something, what would you throw it around for? What would you create? What would you produce? Angry Video Game Nerd, who made that movie. What was that? What was the budget on that? AVGN movie budget. Look, even a piece of shit movie like the Angry Video Game Nerd movie. He needed $325,000. Now, I mean, you got what you paid for. You know, if any of you saw that movie, you say like, oof, yeah, you definitely got the money's worth here somehow in a certain way. But if you equate this to Hollywood productions, right? You don't need to be spending 200, 300 million on stuff. I think 100 and below is the sweet spot for movies. For shows, series, I mean, 80 million maybe, right? Maybe that's even too much. Maybe I'm nuts. Maybe I'm already so accustomed or used to the amount of money all these studios are spending that I don't know what a proper budget would be for a streaming service show. How much did Amazon spend for Lord of the Rings? Oh, no. Oh, 465 million to produce one season of Lord of the Rings. Now, granted, half of that was for the rights. That's 250 million for the rights alone. But goddamn, it was a beautiful looking movie. I mean, beautiful looking show that nobody watched. Holy shit. But this is what I'm talking about. It's like the Wild West right now when it comes to streaming. And I think that's why we're starting to see, or we already started to see, studios like Warner Brothers Discovery, starting to cut down and shit. Because they know, we're spending way too much money and we're not getting the returns. Netflix has been doing this for years, and I think they're starting to feel the pinch finally out of all this time, right? We have potential talks about Paramount Plus and Warner Brothers, with Max merging together, to compete with the likes of Disney Plus and Netflix. It's going to get to the point where, and then just like anything new, they're going to find their foothold and they're going to find like their kind of like groove, right? But right now, obviously, it's all a competition. It's a race. It's how can we get the eyes on our shit? No holds barred. Wild West. But the amount of fucking money they're spending, man, it's just absurd. If you plop down $200 million in front of me right now, I don't know what I'd be able to do. But to have that luxury, at least to feel it, I mean, come on. Yeah, $500 million basically for a one season of Lord of the Rings. Now, again, like I said, half of it is the rights. But shit, still. But then I started this, one of the early things I talked about was the Emmys and how Succession and Beef and The Bear were the most talked about stuff and the most awarded series honored at the Critics' Choice and the Emmys. How much do you think they're spending on their shit? Now, Succession, granted, is an HBO show, right? So, of course, you expect them to have a budget for something, especially as successful as that, right? But let's see. Succession series budget. So, according to this, Succession is one of the most expensive shows ever to film. All right. This is going off of, like, when was this written? This was in 2022. All right. So, who created Succession? Come on, get to the money. Get to the money. Oh God, don't you hate it when articles don't get? All right, is it just me or did I just miss it? It's nowhere here. Did it just clickbait me? I think you just clickbaited me. You fuck. All right. According to Bing AI, the budget for Succession is estimated to be around 90 million per season. 90 million. Okay. 90 million per season. Okay. So let's think about this again. 90 million per season. It's an HBO show, right? So of course they have the money for that. You have Warner Brothers money behind that. But then you got the cast. Brian Cox, who's, someone who's very well-known actor for numerous amounts of years. Kieran Culkin, who's already made a name for himself. And of course, as each season became more and more successful, obviously you have to pay these actors more money, right? So 90 million, and what did I say? 80 million, I thought, would be like a reasonable budget for a series. So maybe I'm right. So 90 million there, right? And like I said, Succession kind of won all the awards basically this past award season. Well, okay, why is Succession so expensive? So, I mean, obviously, you're filming in multiple locations in New York, right? Manhattan, according to here, Manhattan, Queens, Long Island. Um, but it's also the cast. You're paying a lot for the cast. Um, and it's a huge ensemble. It's a huge ensemble, right? And it's a big production too. Again, it's an HBO show, so for this, I'm not so surprised about. Yeah, it may not be like the most extravagant, heavy effects type of show, but at least it gets the viewers and it gets the recognition and the praises. So in studio sense, it kind of justifies the budget that they're spending, right? Now, if the ratings, the viewership, all of that was low and they're still spending 90 million per season, then there's a problem, right? There's a major problem there. What about Beef? Beef Netflix budget. Now look at this. Here's a case of less is more. Beef had a budget of 15 million. Right? And arguably, you can say, had two very strong lead actors with Steven Yeun and Ali Wong. Right? It's Netflix, and it's only one season. I don't know if they're doing a second season. I think this was like a limited season. But there you go, 15 million. And once again, got a lot of praises in Critics' Choice and at the Emmys. What about The Bear? Hold on. It's just The Bear series budget. I don't know if I'll be able to get these numbers. Well, let's see what Bing AI has to say. Yes, I am talking about that. Bing AI. However, I could not find any information on budget. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I had a feeling that this might be, and that's another thing too. It's like when you have studios not kind of reporting how much they're spending or what their numbers are. I mean, it's another reason why we had those strikes with the writers and the actors, right? Because they don't know what these shows are producing, and they're getting asked out on their money and their residues and all that, residuals. But I'm assuming a show like The Bear, which films only in one location in Chicago, right? Jeremy Allen White is not a major name yet. So I assume that we're not talking about a lot of money here. This could easily be another like 15 million, 10 to 15 million dollar budget, maybe even less than that. But that's what I'm talking about still. At the end of the day, you have these productions that spend so little money, but yet they produce content that is well praised in 2 awards presentations and throughout the year that they were airing, right? So it goes back to the point I said about Filoni and his team. What can we do to save money and focus on heartfelt, emotional, character-driven stories that people can attach to and enjoy and still be epic without spending $200 million? Right?
I'm gonna come.
So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But when I saw that report drop, I'm like, okay, take note of this because you know, this is exactly what's happening there. All right. Wow, I've been streaming for almost 2 hours. How about that, huh? So, just other pieces of news that I found interesting, just real quick here. Marvel's Wonder Man is resumed filming. If you remember that they were making a Wonder Man show starring Yahya Abdul Mateen. So they are resuming. Now, uh, let's see. It looks like they may have potentially went through another, very similar to like Daredevil. It went through another overhaul, maybe. I don't know really where this is going to fall in between everything, but I did find it to be an interesting piece of news, whether you care about it or not. Um, there were some movements as far as release dates. So at one point, we had The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and Furiosa coming out on the same day, same weekend. Which, if you really think about it, that's like counter programming, or not counter programming, I should say, but it's you're putting out product that affects the audiences because now you're asking them to choose which one am I going to watch, one or the other, if I'm not going to be able to watch both. So it makes sense that Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes moved up 2 weeks in May, while Furiosa remains in its original release window. So that makes sense. It's, you know, again, if I was either or, I would be thinking about that. This is not another meme situation like Barbenheimer. Like there was no way that they were going to have like another one of those with these two properties out there. So yeah, AKB. I agree. Finding that Q&A session with that Godzilla Minus One director would be a good mind to learn from. Absolutely. I'm telling you, if somehow that was available online to watch, oh, I'd be all over that, without a doubt. An interesting piece of news about The Mandalorian was dropped last Friday. It kind of coincides with what I said in last week's stream, where it says here, it's being reported that The Mandalorian Season 4 was all written, but Lucasfilm reevaluated their plans during the strikes and made The Mandalorian and Grogu movie the priority. So basically what I said last week was the movie is their Season 4, basically. I don't know if they would plan to move on with another season on TV after the movie drops. I guess it all depends on how they close the movie out, right? But that, you know, again, that was something that I kind of knew that was the case. So I wasn't surprised when I see that. Marvel Zombies is still moving full steam ahead on Disney Plus, which is planned to be rated TVMA. So we're getting another R-rated Marvel product coming out, which is fun and exciting. But yeah, there's another piece of news that I want to talk about that dropped last week that I'm going to save. And I'm going to save and talk about whether I go live again tomorrow or on Thursday, because it's going to take some time to talk about. And that is stuff around Benioff and Weiss, the two guys who were part of the creation of Game of Thrones, who's been, I don't know if you could say their popularity has definitely crashed ever since the last season of Game of Thrones ended. Because if you remember, they were attached to do Star Wars, and then that was kind of yanked away from them. Now they have a deal with Netflix, and they're doing this new sci-fi fantasy series with them. But they went into deep detail recently about what their plans were with Star Wars. And they want to talk about the backlash that they suffered from with Game of Thrones and how that all ended. So I haven't had a chance to read any of that, but I think that is something good to say for the next time, so I can kind of deep dive and talk about that more in depth and everything. And in the next, so moving forward, just to give a landscape of where I'm seeing the streaming show go, I think in my mind, ideal scenario would be 3 shows a week: Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Each show will have similarities because I'm going to be talking about headlines for each, but I'll feature and focus on a segment for each. So Mondays will be about box office stuff because obviously we'll be talking about how movies performed during the weekend and so on and so forth. Wednesdays we'll talk about the binge of the week. What show or series did I binge in the week leading to that show, and I'll give my thoughts and review on it. It could be something new, it could be something old that I haven't had a chance to watch yet, something fun and all that. Fridays is going to be more of a laid back show where I'll talk about headlines, talk about what is coming out that weekend and what to look forward to. But I want to give some highlight and focus on video games, something fun, because like a lot of people play video games mostly on weekends. So it would be video game news focused, whatever news dropped in the prior week or the week leading to that. Maybe I'll highlight something. And then going into the weekend, maybe it'll be fun to kind of stream some live reactions to some YouTube videos or anything of the like that. Kind of, again, I do these not because these are things I've been dying to talk about with all of you, but it's a chance to connect with you guys out there. We all share similar fandoms and things that we like. I know the channel has been known more for movie coverage as far as movie reviews, trailer reactions, movie reactions, watch-alongs, and things like that. But my overall thought and plan of the channel was always going to be surrounded around pop culture in general. The geek fandoms out there. And that is broad. It spans all over the place, whether it's movies, TV, cartoons, video games, those who collect and things like that. So I definitely want to kind of spend time and give love to all those kind of facets. And you may not be interested in all of them, but you may be interested in pockets. So that's why I think splitting it up throughout the week sounds like a good idea to me. So obviously I would love to hear your thoughts about that as we move on and move forward with that type of programming. And of course, I'm still going to do like the movie review videos. The Movie Time podcast with Blake and I is still going on strong, and we're still having fun with that. And I'm going to be focusing on putting more of those clip outs on the YouTube channel. But obviously, for those of you who have already been listening on the podcast platform, I obviously thank you guys for doing that. That's a great way to kind of catch that show there. And memberships, if you are familiar or aware or not, I have activated memberships on the channel right now. I just have one simple tier for $1. You could be a friend of the channel. It's just an easy way to show your support on a monthly basis at a very small kind of amount. The smallest amount you'll ever give up on. Not even, you can't get much for $1 these days, but if you have an extra $1 just to spend every month, you could throw it at the channel and the membership there, and you'll get to unlock emotes, and you'll have a special badge in the chat for these live shows and everything. As the month continues, I will be creating additional tiers to be more interactive with the audience, whether it's maybe we can do some private watch-alongs, or you'll be able to suggest movies for me to review or react to. Just more engagement, more. I'm thinking of doing like maybe a game of the month or a movie of the month club, where we can kind of like, as a group, do a monthly thing where we pick a game or a movie or a director, let's say, and we'll do a retrospective in the month. Well, we'll watch a bunch of movies curated by, whoever's part of the group. And, we'll talk about it every month. We'll kind of like, chat amongst ourselves privately. So that in a way, at the end of the day, I did this way back in, as we're slowly approaching the channel's 4-year anniversary, but really 3, because I'm putting more focus in the last 3 years on YouTube. Focus on community was always the case there. And that was always my big thing, where I am passionate about all of these things I talk about. And I know there are a lot of you out there who are equally as passionate. And I want to build a community so that we could feel free to talk about all of those passions together with no judgments, no negativity. Even though there may be some negativity every now and then in the comments, it's the internet. What do you expect? But something that we can all enjoy as a group. AKB sounds like a cool new format for 20. Oh, thank you. Again, we'll see how it goes. So obviously share the word, spread the love. Even if it's not monetary or in a monetary form, just liking, just watching, if you're already subscribed, you are supporting the channel tremendously. And for all of that, I'm always very thankful and grateful for all of that, and for this opportunity to, if I am providing some form of entertainment to all of you out there who watch either these streams or the videos I upload or the podcasts that I do. If you appreciate all that and I'm providing entertainment and everything, then I am already happy in overall. So let's see what happens. And again, thank you so much for the support and everything. But with all that being said, let's close out this episode of The Morning After. Thank you again for watching. If you're watching on the replay, definitely comment on the subjects that we talked about, on the topics we covered here. I would love to hear your thoughts about all the award winners this past weekend, the Daredevil news, the Star Wars news, the Filoni stuff. Would love to hear all your thoughts and comments. Thank you. Big shout out to AKB there for tuning in and being active in the chat. Always appreciate you and appreciate everyone who's been tuning in. I know there are people who watch and don't say anything, and that's awesome too. I love all of you equally. But let's close things out. Let's have one last look at the wintry mix outside in the window as we close out the episode, and the nice winter weather that we're finally getting here in New York. So with all that being said, don't forget, like, subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Check out all the affiliates if you want to help further support the channel. And don't forget, memberships, if you want to be a member of the channel, we have the small tier there available for you now to check out if you want to. So all that out of the way, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe. I will catch you all in the next one. Peace out, y'all.